So those of you that might have come and were expecting to hear Bruxy speak, I'm sorry, but you have me today. And hopefully we'll do a good job of communicating some more specific elements of what we've been talking about in September, especially when we're looking at our own church here in Burlington. So before we start, I just want to do one little recap, and that is this. We're talking about discipleship. And we use this diagram that's in back of me, and it explains trust, grow, give, go, and that's doing that all together. I was probably at the coffee shop, probably Williams, because that seems to be, by the way, I got the biggest laugh last week when I said Williams Fresh Cafe, that it's not fresh. We're going there after church today, Christy and I, so if you are here or new and you want to join us, we're going to be over there and we'd love to answer any of your questions. But somebody was sitting and having coffee with me and they were saying, okay, John, where does discipleship fit when it comes to the way that you guys do church? And what they meant was you guys as far as the meeting house. And so I love napkins because a napkin and a pen is like a whiteboard, especially if you're at a coffee shop like I am. So here, I'm going to show you the diagram that hopefully will help connect the dots a little bit to you if you're the same person. So what is discipleship? Discipleship is important because what it explains is that this is what we are as a church and as a person. I need to be someone who's a disciple. When we look at it, we say it's trust, grow, and give, and go. That's the foundation of what our church is all about. It is a discipleship church at the core. Now, what make us a little different, and hopefully, by the way, every church that you would go to, you're part of, would be about discipleship. But this is who we are at our foundation. What might make us a bit different than a church down the road or down the street or maybe in another community might be what we would call our values. So in the middle are these things called values. And at the meeting house, we value community. We value simplicity. And then we value peace. And how we do that is through KidMax, home church, Sunday teaching, and the underground. These are all some areas we've been speaking about for the last few weeks. But then we also have this how we do it in terms of an area called compassion. And this area is called the Compassion Ministry. And that's what I want to talk to you a little bit about today, and hopefully we'll make a bit of a connection with the passages that we're going to read. You were given a card. I'm trying to figure out, you're giving actually a lot of information today. But if you were to take this blue card out, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But this tells you about what we mean when we say compassion at the meeting house. And in the purpose statement it says this: we believe all people are created in the image of God and have infinite worth. We want to be a community of Jesus-centered disciples that passionately love the most vulnerable people in the world. When you look at the specific areas below, there's some themes: peace building, poverty alleviation, global church, local engagement, developing disciples. These are all part of the bigger picture of who we're working with in the meeting house in the larger context. If you were to take three specific partners that we work with, maybe some of you know these names. MCC, the word stands for Mennonite Central Committee. We work with World Vision Canada. We work with BIC, that's Be in Christ Canada. Those are the bigger initiatives that we work with. But today, and I want to leave a little bit of time at the end because I want to introduce you to a few people, is that in Burlington, we also have local partners. And these local partners are a very important part of who we are when we're thinking about our compassion initiatives. So I want to jump in and teach you a little bit because I don't have a lot of time. So if you want to either take out your Bibles or grab one of the Bibles that is right on that table, or maybe an usher can give that to you, or you have your Bible on your phone, whatever it might be, I'd love you to turn to Matthew chapter 22, and we're going to look at 6 verses, Matthew 22, 34 to 40. And while you're doing that, I have another short clip for you, and this helps us just to give an idea of something called repurpose. This is actually part of our compassion initiative.
Value. What do you give value? We are fed the message that acquiring more and more stuff will make us happy. But does it really? Jesus challenges this narrative by inviting us to live simply so that we can give generously. That's why this month we are taking steps to declutter our lives by giving our gently used and quality items to MCC's thrift shops. We give to MCC's thrift shops because all of the income raised through their stores goes to supporting MCC's relief and development work in Ontario and around the world. This year, MCC is looking for clothing, home decor items, linens, toys, books of all genres, and housewares. If you give it to a friend, that's what we're looking for. Let's work together to make this the greatest repurpose yet.
So when we're looking at the repurpose, some of you have been around for a while, we are helping out all the thrift stores that MCC has in Ontario. And our collection day is Sunday, October 21st. Okay? This is September 30th. That's only about 21 days away. And so that's the third Sunday in October is when we are bringing in our repurpose, the stuff for repurpose. And again, it's clothing, personal accessories, housewares, linens, toys, and books. And you're going to get your information, and your kids are going to get the information, and your youth are going to get that information as well. We also take advantage of that day that if you have any bicycles that you want to bring in, Rolling Horse Community Cycle is also a place that we partner with, and we would just love to make sure that we continue to move their ministry forward as well. So that's also happening. We'll tell you more about that in future weeks, but today's a good day to be announcing that for the first time. Okay, let's look at Matthew chapter 22, 34 to 40. I need to leave a little bit of time for our special guests, so I might have to condense this a little bit. Here's passage, and it says, "But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in the religious law, tried to trap him with this question. 'Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?' Jesus replied, 'You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments.'" What's happening in the story? We're picking it up in Matthew 22. But if you kind of go back one chapter to Matthew 21, you're going to see that Jesus is, this is him after he's entered into Jerusalem riding on the donkey. And if you remember, if you remember on Easter time, we talk about a lot, is that they put palm branches out in front as Jesus was entering into Jerusalem, because the people, they saw Jesus as this potential Messiah. They saw Jesus as potentially the king. They saw him as the one that was going to be their deliverer. And what you're looking at, and again, if you go back to chapter, and from 21 all the way through 22, is you see the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and then you see another group called the Herodians. And these were men that they had power and they had authority, and they are the ones that really held the most sway in terms of the Jewish community at that time. And they were threatened by Jesus. They continuously tried to trap him. They continuously tried to figure out ways that they could bring Jesus down. They wanted Jesus to be done. Here's what's interesting. The Pharisees and Sadducees and another group called Herodians never got along together. They actually believed in different things. It's amazing, well, I don't know, but when you look at politics today, especially maybe this last week, it's amazing how the things that are dividing us are crazy when we get passionate about those areas. But there's one thing that was amazing in this story, is that Jesus united them together because they were threatened by him. They wanted Jesus dead. Politics is vicious, isn't it? I find it interesting that the Pharisees tried to talk to Jesus, and then he told them a story, and then the Sadducees, and then he told them another story. And then it's kind of like at the end, finally, do you know who they bring out? The big gun. Do you know who the big gun is? They call him a religious leader, but he's like a lawyer. That's the big gun. Okay, you lawyers out there, you guys are it. If we can't come to you, who else do we go to? And what's happening is he asks the question, and this is the question. He says, "Teacher, which is the most important commandment?" Because he's trying to trap them. And what Jesus is saying is, I think you've missed it. The most important thing is this, is to love God, and then to love others. Jesus' response, love God and love others, is the greatest commandment. What does that mean? Do we love him? Do you love him? We sang songs today about how much God loves us, but the question really comes back. How much do we love him? How much do we love others? The whole idea of loving others is actually not the most natural thing for us to do. Some of us love ourselves and actually can understand this passage to say, how much do I love myself that I can actually relate and love others that much? And that others of us actually don't love ourselves enough and can't love other people in that way as well. I think that when we look at a story like this, something that is such a simple idea can be so complicated. Somebody once asked me, hey John, you've been in ministry a long time. I've actually been in ministry now over 30 years. And the fact I say that makes myself feel like really old, and I don't feel that old. But the reality of it is that when you've been doing something so long, I think sometimes people expect these incredible answers to come from you so that you will be able to just speak some eloquent way of just having people mesmerized by what you say. So someone said to me, in 30 years of ministry, what is the biggest lesson you've learned? So here's my eloquent way of telling you that answer. Keep it simple. Is that okay? Keep it simple. Keep it simple. And maybe it's because I've worked with youth for so long, is that just to keep it simple is the most important thing. When you look at a passage like this, and we wonder why our faith is so complicated, are we overthinking it? That at the end of the day, it's the same words that Jesus said. All he's calling you to is love God and then love others. Love God and love others. I think that the people in our lives, our kids, our co-workers, our neighbors, our siblings, our parents, whoever those people that are in your orbit, if they don't know Jesus, if they have not become a follower of God, and they look at you, I think that they look at you as a person who is saying, does your faith actually work? See, people want to say, if you call yourself a follower of Jesus, if your faith works, I want that in my life. But if you're over here and you call yourself a follower of Jesus, but yet you don't have any evidence of what that means, they're like, why would I be part of that? So the reality for each one of us is, how does our faith work? Our faith works when we understand and we tap into God's love so that we can love other people. When we care for others, and it's beyond what we're capable of doing on our own, it's because of God, of loving God so much that we're able to do that as well. I was going to say a couple things about, for some reason my grandmother popped up in my mind a few times this week, and my grandmother passed away many years ago. And the funniest thing is, I remember my grandmother, so I'm getting older now, but I remember like big cars. Does anybody know what a Grand Marquis car is? Oh, we do. Wow. Like, it's a really big car. Okay? And there's the kind of car that had, I think there was seat belts, but we never wore them. Okay? So I'm an only child, and but I think I have like 16 or 17 cousins, and we would all be in a cottage at the same time over the summertime. And somewhere along the way in my childhood, I remember a lot of us jumping in this Grand Marquis car that one of my uncles drove. And I'm sure we had 8 kids in that Grand Marquis. Like, we just piled into that car. But one of my cousins started to, he wanted to always have the best seat. The best seat was always beside the driver. And I don't know if you also remember, man, I'm aging myself, but they weren't bucket seats. What were the kind of seats where you all... Bench seats. Wow, Wow, thanks for being with me, everybody. You're helping me out. And so we would all jam in. But the best seat was always the one right beside the driver. And I don't know if your kids do it or not, but in youth group we used to do it too, is that whenever you wanted the best seat, you called shotgun. Did you ever hear that term? I got shotgun. Well, if you have like 16 cousins running to a Grand Marquis at the same time, and you called shotgun, that would mean I get the best seat. I want to be right there. I want to be, kind of you're saying I want to be first. I remember this time, I was very young, my grandmother grabbed me and put me in the best seat. And she put me in the best seat is because I didn't call shotgun. I don't even know what shotgun was. I'm not even sure I could talk, but part of it was that's kind of where it was. And I remember getting in the car, she never drove, someone else drove, and she just basically told us how the first will be last. Now, this is not a first will be last sermon today, but it is a sermon of, are we putting ourselves in a place where we love God so much that we actually move ourselves to a lesser position so that we can help others have the shotgun seat? And I only say that because it is hard. It's such a simple thing that Jesus is telling here, but it is so hard for us to live out. So as we're looking and saying, why is it hard? I thought that I'd just throw a few different, just a few ideas for a bit of a takeout. So what is it to be someone who loves? And here are 5 ways to potentially do that. And then we're going to meet some of our partners. How do we love? We spend time together. That would be, do I spend time together with God? Am I willing to spend time together with others? Just time. Are we giving gifts? Some of us are just wired giving time. Some of us are wired giving gifts. Some of us are wired in this area of serving, this acts of serving. And here's a brand new one. Listening. But listening attentively. And this whole idea of, if we love, we're willing to listen. And then the last one here, and these are just some ideas to think of, is these ideas of words of affirmation. Are we willing to say, I listen to you, but I affirm you in this way. You are this kind of person. I believe God wants us to do the same thing that He would do to others, and that we would do for others. And these might be 5 ways for us just to sort of slow down and say, as I love God, these are some areas that I can do the same things practically to love others as well. I thought today this message would just be a good springboard as we look to think outwardly and act outwardly. We have 5 groups that we work with. It's a white piece of paper that you have, and maybe Julie, are you here? So Julie and Marty and Jen, are you around too? You guys can come on up here. And I would just like to meet each one of our groups. And we're just sort of going to say a little bit about each of your groups and how we're going to do this. Julie, you going to go first? Okay. I'm going to let everybody explain your own group and maybe tell us a little bit about your group. Maybe, you've already got it written down, Marty, so I won't tell you what to say, but there you go. Come on down so we can make it work. There are 2 groups that could not make it with us here next to our social space, and that is Paul Miller and Orchard Home with Justin D. Ward. And I will read some things that they've said in between. That's okay. They're hard to work with.
Stands alone. So I'm representing Bethany residents. Bethany is a home not far from here on Industrial Road. It is a home for 130 adults living and experiencing cognitive difficulties or impairments or psychiatric illness. So that's a one. When we look at this card today and talk about local engagement, serving and advocating for the marginalized in our neighborhoods, that's Bethany. I know when I was thinking about this, in 2018, we live in a crazy world. We live in a world where when we turn on the radio, we turn on the TV, we hear mental health related to a person taking a car and plowing through pedestrians. We hear mental health related to these scary and big and complicated things. And so we have an instinct to pull away, and we go to Bethany and move towards. And yeah, it's weird sometimes, it's awkward, but it's awesome. These people are just like me, and they're just like you. They want to be loved. They don't want to feel marginalized. And so, just as John was talking about today, we're called to love others, and that's what we do. We go there and we love them. And it's important to note they are cared for so well. They're appropriately medicated, and they're a hoot, and we have fun. We play bingo and skee ball, and they like hugs, and they like eye contact, and they like smiles. And when we leave, they all ask, will you come tomorrow? They're awesome. So I could go on and on. Find me in the hall if you want to hear all of my funny and tear-jerking stories. As you have probably, if you've been in the church for some time, you've seen over the past couple of years, we did the pajama drive, and then last year we did the slipper drive, and we've had the benefit of seeing them all in both, and it's awesome. We're sort of gearing up still and getting ready, but look for what might be coming. Again, it'll be something extremely practical, and I appreciate when you guys partner with us so much, and you have no idea how greatly it blesses them for something as simple as slippers. So I'll keep you in the loop, and we'll do it again.
Thanks, Julie. Marty? While you're coming up, Marty, I'll read what Paul has said. So this is from Paul Miller of Next Door Social Space. He says, our mission is to be good neighbors, practicing warm hospitality, developing supportive relationships through programs focused on social skill and spiritual development, all in a welcoming and friendly environment. In short form, we want to be a place where people who find themselves marginalized by society encounter and receive the welcome and love of Christ. Specific programs are twice a week our community lunches, weekly community breakfast, community kitchen, youth ball hockey with the meeting house involved, women's Bible study and support groups, and monthly worship. We also are home to Rolling Horse, where we've already talked about. We're so grateful for, we wish Paul was here, but this is Next Door Social Space, which only has started like 2 or 3 years ago. Kathy, is that right? And it has just grown immensely, so we're just happy with that. I can't see Kathy, but I think she's nodding, so that's good. So this is Marty. Marty is part of Crossroads Prison Ministry.
Good morning. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I just want to, we as a church has been talking about the discipleship diagram, trust, grow, give, go together. And I just want to extend an opportunity to really live our discipleship program out in a very easy and wonderful way. Jesus tells us in Matthew, go and, it says, visit those in prison as if you yourselves were in prison. And that is exactly what we do at Crossroads Prison Ministries. Some people physically go to prisons, but there's another wonderful way that you can actually visit people in prison. And that is by writing letters. John just talked about words of affirmation. But also that we offer the Bible study courses to them, and then we write letters of encouragement to people in prison. So that is a way you can visit them as well. I just have a very short quote from one of the guys who sent, and we receive so many of these in a week, but I'm just going to read something short, and just think about yourself, what an amazing opportunity to respond to somebody like this. He says, Lord, please forgive me for my sins. Take the burden from me and make me new. Please give me strength to make my own path and not follow in the footsteps of the wicked. I ask that you come into my life and lift me up, Lord. I'm very sad and brokenhearted. I need you to lean on. Please help me find my way back to my family. All prayers and glory to you, Lord, in Jesus. This man needs somebody to come alongside him in his spiritual growth. And this is where you as a community can come in. And I know we talk a lot about together, we're going to do it together. So I'm just asking anybody who's already involved in Crossroads in this today, do you just want to stand so that, we can see that we are currently doing it together, but we also want to invite others. So anybody who's involved as a volunteer, a mentor, supporter, financially, anybody. Yeah, so we have quite a few people already, and I know there's some that's not here. But please join, thank you. Please join the team of just coming alongside people in prison and help them in their spiritual journey through letters of encouragement and marking Bible study courses. I just want to share another way. That's one way you can come alongside us as a ministry. Financially, of course, any church, any ministry needs funds. So if you cannot visit people, whether it is physically or through letter writing, you can always support us financially. And then I want to invite you, please mark your calendars November 30th. We have an amazing speaker who's going to come and speak at our annual event. He was one of the biggest drug dealers and gang leaders in Alberta area. And he just radically, Jesus just took hold of his life, and he is so in love with Jesus. But he's going to come and share his story. So again, let's do it together. You know, as home churches, we have tables of 8. So come as a home church, as a table of 8. Hear what Jesus is doing in prisons, and then come and support us. So mark November 30th. Thanks.
Orchard Home, Justin DeWord was not able to make it too. Jenny, come on up. And he wrote this. Today in Ontario, there are over 15,000 people with developmental disabilities waiting for supported housing. The result is that only those in crisis can be offered a place to live, and there is little choice in where you live. The community you're part of for those who you're living with. So Orchard Home will be a family-style home where 5 to 6 Christians with developmental disabilities can live and belong to a community of people that share in their life and faith. In order for Orchard Home to become a reality, 300 members of the Christian community must pledge to surround and support this home by committing to regular financial gifts, prayer, and intentional relationships. Justin has provided also some information here that we can connect with, that we can provide for you to make that happen, but I know you have his website on that piece of paper. So, Jen, finally, come on up. This is Jen Stevens, and Jen is going to talk to us about, what are you talking to us about? Sorry. Eagle's Nest. No, but I forget Eagle's Nest. I call it Drummond House, so you guys figure that out. Here, you do it.
That's okay. Okay. Hello, good morning. My name is Jennifer Stevens, and not only do I go to church right here in Burlington, but I'm the volunteer coordinator for Eagle's Nest, Drummond House. And we are so incredibly grateful for being one of the compassion partners here. Eagle's Nest we run 2 programs. One is Drummond House, which is a transitional home for women and children in crisis, where a woman and children, single, married, or single with their children or whatever, can come and stay for up to 6 months and have support. They get access to counseling, coaching, help with legal things, trips to lawyers, trips to court, that kind of thing. We also operate the Hope Center, or the Home of Practical Education, and that's for the entire family. So everyone can come, the dad, the mom, kids, and they access coaching, counseling, courses, all that kind of stuff. So those are our 2 programs that we offer and operate. We also have Rescued and Restored, which is up in Freelton. It's a store that sells furniture, household goods, that kind of stuff, and they provide 40% of our funding. It's an incredible blessing, just by selling books and old chairs and things like that. So that's our 2 programs and how we're supported. Like I said, the Meeting House, you guys are amazing. I can't tell you how many people already volunteer with us. You've done things like gardening, I could go on and on, but gardening came to mind, which is huge. The weeds get out of control, and we're so grateful. And so many of you have also approached me. I just can't explain how grateful we are for that support. This year we're really excited. There's new changes and opportunities coming. We're looking at expanding the Hope Center and all the programs there, and also looking at new ways to serve in our community. So if you're interested in coming out and coming alongside us, I would love to talk to you more. I'll be outside. We've got some things, if you feel like a nice walk on a February evening, we have the coldest night of the year walk. Once again, the meeting house really came out major for us last year. You get to walk around Waterdown and have a nice soup afterwards. So it's a great community outreach, and we raised a ton of money, and we're able to support all of our programs through that. You can also cook for our residents up at Drummond House. You just make a meal in your own home and come and drop it off. That's amazing. You know what it's like when you've had a hard day or a hard week to come home and not have to make dinner. That's what we are able to do 3 times a week with volunteer cooks. And our residents so appreciate it, and the meals are amazing. I get to eat them sometimes. They're fabulous. We also have things like the gardening I said, working at our store, lots of opportunities. So if you'd like to come and make a difference in the lives of families right in our community, come and talk to me afterwards. I'd love to chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. Can we give a round of applause for all of our partners? Thank you. So Julie, Marty, and Jen are all going to be in the lobby if you'd like to talk to them specifically. Remember, why we're doing this and why we're talking about this is because the whole idea of loving God and loving others. This is a way to be intentional about loving others. This is a way to connect the dots. This is a way for you to say, I don't know the needs of our community, but here's 5 areas that we are intentionally partnering with within our own community because we believe that we can help them move their mission and ministry forward. It's important. So whenever you hear of whatever initiative is in this next year, you will know that this is our way to be loving others, to be intentionally loving others moving out. So thank you so much for coming and being part of helping explain this to us. We have a few things to do, and then I'll let you go. This is a very practical day today. And sometimes we listen, we sit, we say, that was a great message, but then we do nothing with it. This is a chance to do something with it. And so my prayer is that we will be people that love God. I almost forgot, but today, my wife and I are actually going to the coffee shop.